In my quest to finally wrap up the year in film 2022, I've been hitting some of the movies that I missed along the way, going month by month to review some that I did not get to see originally. We're talking about movies from February of 2022 now. 4 of these 6 could be considered in the horror or thriller genre. We're going to talk about Moonfall, Kimi, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Cyrano, Studio 666, and No Exit. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my movie review wrap-up for February of 2022, taking a look at some films that I did not get to see last year or when they were originally released. And yes, I know we're well into 2023 now. I do own a calendar, but we're going to just kind of take these one month at a time, taking a look at some of the movies that I did not get the chance to see upon first release. And this time, we've got really movies that run the gamut. 2 of these are in the pretty good category. 2 of these are stone cold horrible, and 2 kind of land somewhere in the middle. So we'll see about that. One good thing about these wrap up videos is that the movies are all pretty much readily available at this point. You can either get them on a streamer, or you can pay $4 or whatever to rent them from Apple or from Amazon, or even Redbox, still might have some of these. And I will let you know as I talk about them what streamer they are currently streaming on as of this recording. Of course, all the streaming rights change all the time, so you never do know. But anyway, a couple of these are actually the streamer's original films too, so that might help. All right, we're going to go in order of release. So we will start with Moonfall. This is currently available for free to stream on Max, but you can, of course, check it out, on demand as well. All these, I think, you can get, except for the Netflix original. I think all of these are available on demand as well if you don't have the streamer that they're currently on. All right, Moonfall is a Roland Emmerich film, and, another thing that's nice about these wrap-up videos is I am not going to do the big long, 7, 8, 9 minute reviews for each of these. They're going to be pretty quick, 4 minutes maybe. We'll give you a brief synopsis and then just kind of spew a few things about it and then give my grade, and then we'll move on. So first is Moonfall. This is a science fiction disaster film. And Roland Emmerich, of course, no stranger to this type of story. In fact, he kind of, made his livelihood with things like Independence Day and Godzilla and The Day After Tomorrow and all that kind of stuff. 2012 comes to mind. So the cast here includes Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, John Bradley, Michael Pena, Charlie Plummer, Donald Sutherland, and many, many others. And this basically follows 2 former astronauts alongside a conspiracy theorist. Of course, every Emmerich movie has to have a conspiracy theorist, and they discover the hidden truth about the Earth's moon when it suddenly leaves its orbit and starts to fall. All right, look, other than Independence Day, I don't believe I have made, a big secret of the fact that I don't particularly like Roland Emmerich films. 2012 particularly was, I think, the last one maybe I saw, it was just so bad. And all of these kind of follow the same pattern, and Independence Day also follows that pattern, but maybe because it was earlier on in his career, I don't know. But I feel like that one sort of set the template that he is just copying from over and over again with diminishing returns. But also there were characters there that were interesting. Will Smith obviously was pretty much at like I wouldn't even say the peak, because it was before that, but like sort of the start of the peak of his movie career. Independence Day was his first like huge hit, I feel like, at the cinema, because it was before Men in Black. It was before a lot of those other things. So he was sort of riding that crest. Jeff Goldblum, everyone loves him. And so I think that one stands alone in the Emmerich universe. All of these other movies, though, I never saw Day After Tomorrow, I'll admit that. But, typically they follow the same kind of pattern. They have the same type of characters, the archetypes. And like I said, diminishing returns is the name of the game. And that makes Moonfall the worst yet of them. Even worse than that second Independence Day movie, which was very, very bad. But yeah, the plot really doesn't make sense here. The acting is, I mean, mediocre would be a gift, I think, to call it that. But I think part of that is this poor script. Halle Berry, look, she's been in some bad movies along the way, right? But she can usually at least give us a nice performance with it. Like Catwoman's not a good movie, but you could have fun with it. This movie, I mean, boy, it would be tough to make a case to have fun with this movie. I will admit that maybe there's a couple of interesting set pieces, I guess, but again, it's all similar stuff to Emmerich movies that we've sort of seen in the past over the years. The effects are like okay in that regard, and that's how I felt about 2012. Like, yeah, it looked pretty cool. Obviously they spent a lot of money on it, and in fact this movie Moonfall was a huge box office bomb because the budget was like crazy and it made almost no money at the theater, because I think word got out pretty quickly that it was a bad film. So look, I mean, unless you're an Emmerich completist or part of the Patrick Wilson fan club or something, this is one for sure that you can skip. It's easily one of the worst movies that I have so far seen for 2022. I leave Moonfall with an F. If something made sense in the plot, or if it just didn't have any of that. All right, so up next, we will talk about Kimi. See, that was quick. This was a Max original, so you can see it there. But I believe you can also get it elsewhere on demand, usually after about a year. Other than like Netflix holds theirs, pretty tightly to the chest. But, a lot of stuff on like Apple TV Plus or Paramount or Max, you can get usually down the line, like a year or so later on DVD or on demand or whatever. And that's how you can get Kimi if you don't have Max. But this stars, and this has a famous director too, Steven Soderbergh. So we'll start there. But it stars Zoe Kravitz. And she plays this tech worker who is an agoraphobic due to some trauma in her past, but also heightened by COVID-19. And she discovers recorded evidence of a violent crime with this new service that she's working with called Kimi. And as a result, she, is going on a quest to find out, what happened and is this recording, real? What's going on with it? And it turns out to be sort of a new version of Rear Window, you could say. Obviously that's a Hitchcock classic with some similar themes there, of sort of seeing or hearing something, a crime being committed, and jumping into action. So this is definitely, not a horror, but I said 4 of these 6 movies could be considered, horrors or thrillers. This certainly falls into the thriller category. Zoe Kravitz is great, by the way, and she continues to sort of knock us out. She had a great performance, speaking of Catwoman, in The Batman in 2022 as well. But yeah, she's just fantastic here. And it's a really, kind of tight thriller, I would say. Some of the Soderbergh movies are a little bit long in the tooth, and we sort of drag a little bit with them. But this one is, a pretty tight, was this maybe 90 minutes or something? Maybe a little bit longer. But yeah, Zoe Kravitz is fantastic in the role here. You really sort of believe everything that she's going through, and it's believable that I guess it's sometimes like a horror trope where, you tell somebody and they're like, we don't believe you, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about. But she gets that, static from the makers of the Kimi system, and so they're obviously they've got sort of ulterior motives perhaps and stuff, and so that leads to some intrigue as well. There's some pretty well shot action scenes, as you might expect with Soderbergh, and like I said, a dazzling performance from Kravitz. This one I would say is probably the best of all 6 of these movies. I leave Kimi with a B+. All right, let's move next to Netflix for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is just, of course, the latest iteration of this movie. And this was directed by David Blue Garcia. And this is very much in the vein of the new versions of Halloween. This takes, and I had to do a little digging in this because I've only seen the 2013 or 2012 or something version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've actually never seen the original. I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies growing up, so I kind of missed all of those other iterations along the way. But reading up a little bit on this to find out, where sort of in the timeline this is or whatever. So this takes a cue from the recent Halloween movies in terms of basically disregarding every single movie except for the first one. And then this becomes kind of a direct sequel to the first one. And as a result, we have Leatherface back, of course, but he is targeting a group of young adults. But there is a survivor from the original murder, the original spree of murders, I should say, that is here. And I don't believe it's the same actress. I think she passed away, so it is a different actress in the role. But she is part of it, and so it is sort of, bringing back Laurie Strode in Halloween and that kind of thing. But I guess from what I understand, they sort of disregarded everything else in the sequels and whatnot. This movie is really horrible. And I didn't particularly care for the one I saw before either, the 2012 or 2013 one. I was grading at the time, but I didn't have, the videos or anything. I think it was probably like a C minus or something in that range. Like, it's not good, but it was serviceable enough. This one, there's just nothing redeeming about it. It takes all of the worst stuff from horror movies. For example, people making the dumbest decisions, completely unlikable characters where you're just like, I don't care if any of them die. They could all die. The movie could end in 5 minutes and I would be happy. And, I mentioned Kimi's runtime, which was an hour and 29 minutes, I believe. This is 83 minutes and like 8 minutes of that is credit. So really it's about 74, 75 minutes. And it actually felt longer than some of these other movies I watched. The one we're going to talk about next, Cyrano, I believe is well over 2 hours. This one probably felt longer to watch than that one. Just like I said, the worst parts of horror movies. Now, I will say, in kind of, I guess, the plus column, some of the kills, I guess were, I wouldn't even say inventive. They were gory. I will give them that. They were gory. So if you're looking for just a gore fest with no attachment to any of the characters or anything, okay, maybe, I could give this one a slightly higher grade. I'm not going to, because I don't think that particular element makes for a good horror movie just by itself. And that's all this movie has going for it. Gore after gore after gore. But who cares, right? Because if you can't care about even one character, then their demise is completely irrelevant. And because I personally have no attachment to the original franchise, I also didn't care about the legacy character either. So, again, you might more than me. But based on the things I've heard from my friends who are horror fans and fans of this particular franchise, I'm not wrong. They didn't seem to care about this either. So I'm pretty satisfied with my grade on this. I'm going to leave the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 with an F. And you'll note I didn't even tell you who was in it. I told you who directed it, but it doesn't even matter who's in it because all the characters are sort of irrelevant. I don't think I really knew any of them anyway, but just bad all around. But that was a Netflix original, so that is the only place you can check that out. All right, Cyrano is next. This one did go to theaters. In fact, it also got nominated for a couple of Golden Globe Awards. But this is available now for streaming on Prime Video. Also, MGM Plus has it, which formerly was Epix. So if you are subscribed to either of those services, you can check this out. But again, on demand, you can rent this or buy it as well. And this is from director Joe Wright, whose path for me, is not great. He did executive produce a really good movie called Locke, but he directed Pan, which was horrible. That was like a Peter Pan movie from, I don't know, 2014 or something, not very good. But then he did direct Darkest Hour, which was okay. Great performance in that from Gary Oldman, and I'm pretty sure he won the Academy Award for it, but the movie itself was like okay. But he directed Hannah, which is like okay. So for me, he does not have a great track record, but this actually could be his best movie because of that, I suppose. It stars Peter Dinklage as Cyrano de Bergerac, and it is, the classic story of this where, if you don't know, Cyrano, is part of this love triangle because he, has this wonderful wit about him. He, is a master of wordplay, and he is in love with this girl, but he is not much of a looker. Of course, in like the Steve Martin version of Roxanne, his problem was this huge nose, and that's sort of the classic character trait. But they did it with Peter Dinklage because he is short in stature, and so that sort of was Cyrano's issue in this one. But so he ends up sort of being the go-between between his buddy and this wonderful woman, Roxanne, played here by Haley Bennett. And then, it goes from there. But the thing that makes this the most different about the other versions that I have seen or that I even know about is it is a musical. And that comes with some positives and negatives. I think it is a little too long because of that. Most musicals are well over 2 hours. This one doesn't really stretch it out much longer than that, really just a few minutes. But it's still could have been trimmed maybe, if you lose a song or two, because the songs were a bit hit or miss. I would say they hit more than they missed. But again, when it's over 2 hours, maybe you could have cut a song or two. But the other thing is there's actually big stretches where there is no songs. 20 minutes here or whatever, where there's nothing, and then you'll have like 3 songs in short succession. But as such, I don't know if this was originally conceived as like a Broadway show or something, but its direction from Joe Wright does seem very stagey, and it seems like it might have been better played out on the stage as opposed to in a movie theater. But because they do have the scope of being theatrical, at least, in this particular instance, the set pieces are very lavish, and the costume designs are great, but you could have that on Broadway stage too. But there's different locales that I think work better for the theater, but the direction is just very, very stagey, and the performances come off a little bit that way too. But that being said, Dinklage is great as Cyrano. It's interesting. I think people after Game of Thrones were like, okay, well, where does this guy sort of fit in, in Hollywood? Can he be a leading man? And he proves here that I think he actually can. He's great in this role. Haley Bennett's good as well. But really, Dinklage, there is, a talented dude there. That I think maybe a lot of people write off because of his stature, but he proves it with this one that he can sing too. He's doing all his own singing here. I think maybe I knew that from a different project he did, but yeah, so a bit stagey for my taste, but overall, I think this was a very good interpretation of a story that we've seen, countless times before. I leave Cyrano with a B. All right, let's move next to Studio 666. This is the only one that is not currently available on a streamer, but again, you can get it on demand pretty easily. And this involves the rock group Foo Fighters, one of my favorites. I actually should have worn my Foo Fighters shirt. I have a couple different ones, but I sort of forgot. But in any case, so this features the stars, are this band: Dave Grohl, Pat Smear, the late Taylor Hawkins. He died just a few months after this was released. Nate Mendel, Chris Shiflett, and then some people outside the band that are in this movie include Whitney Cummings, Will Forte, Jenna Ortega. She's on a hot streak right now. We just talked about her in the January wrap-up. And Jeff Garlin also co-star in the cast. So basically, the Foo Fighters play themselves moving into a cursed mansion to record a new album. I had kind of high hopes for this. It's supposed to be kind of a horror comedy. And the preview made it look really funny. I'm a huge Foo Fighters fan. Like I said, I've seen them so many times in concert. But this movie is a little bit of a mess. The main problem with it is it's sort of like a one-note joke. And as a result, I think would have probably done a lot better were it to be like a primetime, hour-long special as opposed to a full-blown movie. Because here's another one that I think, felt a little bit long in the tooth, even though it's not that long. Was it an hour 40 maybe? 106 minutes? That's an hour and 46 minutes. All right, that's definitely a little bit too long for a movie like this. Because yes, okay, there are some jokes that were good, although I saw a lot of them in the trailer. And there's a couple of moments of, I can't even say genuine horror, but for a horror fan, you could be like, all right, that was well done or whatever. But it reminded me a lot of, and this will only kind of make sense to like real, music fans from back in the day. But there was a Kiss movie called Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park or something like that. And this was on when I was a kid. And this was a full-blown like TV special. I do believe it was like 2 hours, but it was 2 hours of television time. So without commercials, it, gets down to like 125 or something like that. But this didn't even need to be that long. This could have been an hour-long, primetime special on Fox, presents Foo Fighters in Studio 666. That's kind of the vibe here. And there's nothing necessarily like too vulgar about it. I think it's PG-13. And even if it's not, a couple of curse words, they could have taken those out or whatever. Or MTV could have played it, whatever. The point is, this did not need to be an hour and 46 minutes. But I had high hopes for it because I like the band. I love their music. And I think they're funny guys. Some of their music videos have proven that to us over the years. The Big Me video where they're doing the Mentos commercial ripoff, and then Learn to Fly where they're in drag, doing the stewardesses and the pilots and stuff, for that video. So they obviously have sensitive humor. And Dave Grohl, he always has a sense of humor about himself. But this project is a little bit ill-conceived. I guess I should note the director because I've talked about all the other directors so far. B.J. McDonnell, not familiar with him. But yeah, this is definitely on the worst side for me. I'm probably even giving it a little bit of an extra benefit of the doubt because I like the band. But there was no reason for this to be a full-blown movie. TV special at most, I think, for this one-note joke. I leave Studio 666 with a C-. All right, and finally, we've got No Exit. This was a Hulu original, so you can check it out there. And this is directed, I've been saying all the directors, by Damien Power. Not super familiar with him, but this stars Havana Rose Liu as a recovering addict of the drug variety who discovers a kidnapping in progress while she gets stranded at a rest stop during a blizzard. And you've got Danny Ramirez, Dennis Haysbert, Dale Dickey, and David Reisdahl co-starring as the four suspects of this kidnapping. So this is, for sure in the thriller category. You could even maybe say psychological thriller. And this has some potential. It doesn't ever quite reach the potential, but one thing I liked about it is it was all pretty confined. I wonder, I didn't look this up, maybe I should have, but I wonder if this was maybe filmed sort of during the pandemic, where they were like, okay, well, what scripts do we have that we don't have to go to a lot of, exotic locales or even have, big casts or whatever. This is a pretty small cast and they're all pretty much confined, fairly confined to, a couple of different places. And in that sense, it actually works with the tension. We're sort of building that. There's a few secrets and twists that come out along the way. And the main plot, who's, what's going on with this kidnapping, it's a little bit routine, but I think, some decent performances kind of lift that up a little bit. I'm a fan of movies that sort of are kind of with that scope of dialing it down and just having one room and 5 or 6 people, and there's a few different movies like that I could point to that I'm like, I like that conceit when it's done well. I think it is not done amazingly here, but I think it's done well enough. And actually some of the stuff at the beginning is a little more boring. Once we get into the meat and potatoes of the story and we start unraveling some things. It gets really interesting in that regard. So yeah, overall, this is pretty good. Dennis Haysbert, it's unfortunate for him, and it's not his fault that he has such an amazing booming voice, but because of that voice, and I was not a 24 fan, although I know he was the president there, but his voice from the commercials and just other things I've seen him in, it did take me out a little bit, and I like him, but and he's a good actor, but it sort of took me out a little bit to see him sort of in this potentially villainous role. I don't know. Maybe that was just me, but in any event, this was definitely among the better entries for this month. I wish it kind of lived up to that potential, but again, another pretty quick one. I think this was another one that was like an hour and a half, or maybe even a little less. And I think they did a lot with that time. So I'm going to leave No Exit with a B minus. All right, so there it is. We knocked out 6 movies in less than a half hour. So that's what we're going to do kind of month by month. I'm going to try to post one of these every single week, so that by the time we're done, I can finally have my 2022 wrap up and, all of that. And then shortly after that, we will start on the January 2023 wrap ups. So we're not so late into 2024 when I'm doing that. But in any event, thank you so much for joining me on this journey, if you're coming along. And I will have playlists. In fact, there's a playlist of all of my 2022 reviewed movies that I will be putting these wrap-ups at the end of. So you can check out every movie from 2022 that I reviewed in that playlist. It's all right there for you. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.